get the after lunch crowd, so hopefully you all are caffeinated for this. I'm excited to be talking today about real use cases. So much of what we talk about in this conference and about AR, VR in general is about theory, the art of the possible, what we can do. So I'm very excited to talk about what we are doing currently in this space. First, a little bit of background here. As we all know, we have drastically changed where we work over the past several years. Ever since we shrunk down supercomputers and put them into our pockets, the whole concept of the office kind of went away. I think specifically here in Silicon Valley, we have been on the front edge of that for a very long time, of pushing the envelope of I can work from my car, I can work from the train, on a plane, anywhere, I can work from the beach. But over the last couple of years, that has been much more pervasive globally, as everyone is experiencing some element of remote work. The whole rise of the digital nomad, people working from an RV and just going from site to site. We now have companies that are pushing the envelope of what they can offer to their employees to attract and retain top talent. You're seeing things like the 4-day work week and the unlimited PTO and sick time, the ability to work from different regions, and the company will handle the tax implications of that. We're seeing more and more options and variety and flexibility for employees, and employers are all facing that same problem of what does hybrid work look like for me and my staff? What does that look like as we're changing where and how we work? But what's been interesting about the change in where we work is one thing has been very current and consistent through that whole thing of the people haven't changed. People have been the same through all of this. We still value those face-to-face interactions. We still value connection. We joke, we sit in circles to share stories. It's something we have been doing since the beginning of time. It's how tribal knowledge is passed from one generation to another. It's how we share customs. It's the first experience most of our kids have in formal education, even before they get into kindergarten, in preschool and daycare. They have circle time. It's how they start their day. It's how they learn from their teacher, how they share with their friends. At work, we like to gather around a presenter like we are right now. And I can share content, and I can tell you a story. And then after work, we go out for drinks, and we do the same thing. We gather in circles. There's certain elements of this that have always been the same in the way that people interact. And despite this rapid shift to remote and hybrid work that's been drastically escalated over the last couple of years, people are still looking for that connection. There was a recent study by Accenture saying that Generation Z is actually 74% of respondents said they value on-site work and face-to-face interaction. But that has drastically changed. We now have companies that don't even offer an on-site option. So what does that look like as we look at the future of work? I want to talk about how enterprise customers are using a solution today. I don't want to make a whole product pitch about it, but I do need to explain a little bit about the product I'm speaking of so you can understand how our customers are using it. But 7 years ago, myself and some of my colleagues decided to set out to explore this, hey, what can we do in this AR, VR space? What can we do to change the way that customers collaborate and communicate? Can we shake up the current enterprise collaboration market? And one thing we're looking at is how people want to interact with each other, how trust is established and relationships are fostered and built when people can be together and share a drink and joke and interact face-to-face. Can you create that virtually? And the challenge has always been, all of us have done video meetings. We have all done things from our phone, from a monitor, from a laptop, but there's a very clear delineation. I'm here, you're there, there's a piece of glass in between us. So it's very easy to be reminded that we are not physically together. Is there a way to get to that sense of being together? Not I'm here, you're there, but I'm here and you're here with me virtually when we can't physically be together. Can you create that same connection, that essence of connection, without the proximity? So that was the question we gave ourselves to address. Can we do that? The answer is yes. Yes, you can, which is very exciting. We built a solution. It's called Webex Hologram. I'll explain a little bit about it as we get into the details of it. But what it is an end-to-end photorealistic holographic collaboration system. It's in real time. It's not an avatar or a likeness of someone, it's me as a hologram in that experience with you. It was designed to really focus on two major pain points that our customers had. One was, how do I do training remotely? How do I explain a new product or device when I can't get in front of my customers or my clients or my partners? And the other use case was, how do I build consensus and get to a quick decision on things like design reviews, where it's a high-stakes decision, it needs to happen quickly, we need to review the same content at the same time, but it's just so hard to get my people together. How do I solve for that? So the experience that we created was focused on having a presenter-style, one-to-many type experience. You would have one individual be in front of a capture array, and they would be projected on the other end to multiple participants, 1, 5, 10. On the other end, all they need is an AR headset. Our solution right now, we work with Magic Leap 2, HoloLens 2. We're really focusing on whatever the leading edge in the AR space is. But from that end, the individual could experience the same experience, whether they were in their office, their home office, their living room in their pajamas. All they had to do was put on a headset, and they can see that presenter right there, holographically in front of them. It's not, I'm here and you're there. It's a, you are here with me in my space, and I can follow every step along as you are showing me something. You can walk me through how this object works. You can take it apart. I can understand and ask questions. You can hold up a physical model, and I can follow along with each step of the way as you show me how all those components work together. You can bring up a virtual model. I can grab it, you can grab it, we can go back and forth. You get to consensus and learning and understanding much quicker because you can act the same way as you would if you were there in the room with that person explaining. So that is the solution that we built, and those are the use cases that we're going after. But I don't want to just tell you about it. I want to tell you what our customers are doing with it, because that's the most interesting thing in an enterprise track. So connection unlocked. Interesting formatting. Sorry. Go back here one. Our first use case was in the healthcare space. Healthcare obviously has been very dramatically impacted over the last couple years, but healthcare is also something that is very pervasive. We're all familiar with it. Either we work in the space, we work with the space, or we consume stuff from the space. It's something that is, any geography is experiencing healthcare issues. It's also something that quality really matters. I'm willing to bargain shop on a lot of things. I'll look for the best price on electronics or a vacation package. I won't bargain shop when it comes to a surgical procedure. It's something where quality really matters. So when you're looking at healthcare for yourself, your kids, your employees, quality matters. So in this space, there were a lot of options that were really challenging in general to do remotely, but much more so over the last couple of years. My brother-in-law works in medical device sales in New York City. It's a very grueling job. His current experience is basically going from hospital to clinic to healthcare facility, and he's waiting to meet with doctors, physicians, medical support staff, and show them a new medical device, walk them through how to use it, answer and field a lot of questions, help them deploy it on site. During the pandemic, specifically, things got really challenging with going to site, because each one had their own safety protocols, and certain things would time out. You get a testing here, an approval there, and it didn't work out. How many cases of when you're waiting to meet with a surgeon, we all know their schedules aren't exactly predictable. I know for you and I, usually, we don't have the situation where a meeting just happens to run over for 4 hours. Usually, if it runs over for 4 minutes, we can say, okay, I gotta run to something else, let's table this, we'll revisit at another time. Surgeons don't have that luxury. When a surgery ends up being more complex, they end up having unforeseen complications, something takes longer, a part didn't show up, things can take a lot longer than planned. In the case of my brother-in-law, if he was waiting to meet with a surgeon, surgery ran long, he lives in one of the most densely populated cities in the globe. He could just come back the next day and revisit that. What happens if you're not in a location like that? Our very first trials customer using an early adoption version of our prototype. They're a medical device company, a Global 500 company with a presence around the world. They were running into the challenge of when they had to train surgeons on their medical devices, they had two options. One, they can either fly someone on site to go through the whole training procedure, often have to be there for more than one day. They would have to wait on the schedule of the surgeons of when they may or may not be available and walk them through everything in person of how to use a device. What got really challenging with that is not only the travel delays and restrictions of just traveling in general, exacerbated through the pandemic, but also all the safety protocols are different by region. You might send somebody to one site and then they have to quarantine for a certain period of time before they could go to another site. And we have training experts that aren't based in every city that you need to train surgeons in, that gets really challenging. The other option they had was to do video calls, be able to show a device on a video screen and try to walk through how you use something. The challenge of that is you're trying to show a multidimensional 3D device on a flat screen. So they're often holding a device up to a camera, trying to explain and convey how things work in assembly and usage and understand sizing. And that can be really, really challenging because it's not the same as if you're right there looking at something from all angles. With Webex Hologram, they were able to then deploy an end-to-end holographic training solution. That way, you could get the best of both worlds. Rather than have to deal with all the time delays and safety protocols of each location and geography, they could then have somebody there in person, holographically, walk the surgeons and medical staff through how to use the device. Those participants could then look at it from all angles, see the device, be able to pull up a virtual model of the device, see inside of it, see how it works, ask questions, go back and forth. You get all the benefits of being there in person while getting all the time savings and safety savings of being remote. We had another early adopter, also in the healthcare space. They were interested in using holographic technology for training. In this case, they were trying to train their new employees on how to perform a procedure on a training mannequin. Again, it's something, if you are there in a room with someone and you can watch every step of that, you can lean around and look and see the different angles. You can understand how a device works with another device inside of a mannequin. You can understand the procedure very well when you're in the room with that person. Very challenging when you're dealing with that on a flat screen because life is not flat, life is multidimensional. So in this case, they were looking at using the holographic solution to allow their staff to be trained on these procedures and get that same experience of being in the room, going step by step through the procedure, which is very different from just watching something remotely, distantly on a screen from a ways away. Healthcare is something, I hope you like my play on words here, where when you're talking about surgery, flat images just don't cut it. It is an area where quality really, really matters. So getting to that understanding, getting to that level of cooperation and collaboration when you're trying to convey an idea and getting to understanding quicker is phenomenally important in that space. One of our other customer use cases, probably our most visible customer use case, McLaren Racing. If you're familiar with Formula One racing, everything is fast. Not just the race itself, everything that goes into it. These race locations can be all over the globe, and oftentimes a racing crew will go from one location to another, be in a different country, could be on a different continent. Oftentimes they'll show up a week, 2 weeks before the event itself, and they can come with up to 30 tons of car parts via air, and maybe another dozen by ship. And all of that converges in one site within usually about 10 days or so before an event. And they build the entire car from scratch on site. It is something where they don't have a lot of leeway in the schedule, in the exactness. And you're not building a model, you're building a piece of machinery that's going to go whizzing around a track at hundreds of miles an hour with a human life inside. It has to be exact. So this was another situation where they were looking at how can we do this differently? How can we do it better? How can we do it faster? How can we do it more efficiently? Because what happens with all those tons and tons of equipment that arrive? What happens if there's a part that's missing? What happens if something doesn't fit right? What happens if you've changed something on site and now the design needs to change to reflect that? Again, they were often faced with two options. There could be a frantic last-minute flight of a design engineer coming from their headquarters to that site, but that obviously comes with travel delays. Or there would be a lot of phone calls and video calls with some drawings and renderings and flat images going whizzing back and forth as they're trying to have a call for that. Zach Brown, who's the CEO of McLaren Racing, is very famous for saying innovation is a main part of his business. He was interested in adopting a holographic solution for his racing crews so that they could look at an entirely new way of building. It's something where, again, you could get that real-time feedback and collaboration from a design engineer at your headquarters interacting with on-site pit crews, and you could make those very fast, very important decisions. This is an industry where literally and figuratively every second matters. It's also something where if you get it wrong, there's a lot at stake. So oftentimes, making those decisions that require collaboration, they require input from multiple parties, you want to have a conversation where you can see everyone deciding on this conversation. You want to see what is their facial reaction, how do they feel about this, how are they posturing, what's their body language, are they bought into this, do they think maybe they're holding back an idea and there could be something else. You want to see the people that you're interacting with as well as the part that you're discussing. And it's important in these high-stakes conversations that you are able to facilitate that level of collaboration and open connection. So this is something, again, where Zach Brown had made the comment about the holographic solution saying it brings the parts to life. It's just an entirely different way of looking at design. So again, design at the speed of racing. Some of our other use cases and customer applications, we had a Fortune 500 apparel designer who is looking at using holographic interactions as a way to facilitate connection between their designers and their models. What is interesting for them is it opens up a whole area of accessibility that wasn't there before. They're able to tap into a much broader talent pool, and by looking at these different points of accessibility, they're now looking at new sustainability models that weren't an option for them before. So again, whether they're looking at very high-level design changes or getting very detailed about seams or placement or zipper closures, they're able to use an entirely new way of doing business to collaborate from anywhere in the world. Another use case that bubbled up from a few conversations we've had for customers and clients in military, defense, Fortune 500 manufacturing, and this is one that we actually didn't even think about when we started building the solution. This was very much customer driven. They started looking at it in a situation, we always thought, it's going to be important for certain scenarios to see the person and see the content, and I want to focus on both at the same time. That whole interaction is what's important. The use case that some of our customers brought up is a case where there is no content. I just need to see the person. But it's something where it's really important that I see that person. So specifically in high-stakes interview scenarios, where you might be trying to interview a commanding officer, you might be interviewing a C-suite individual, someone who's going to be a major decision maker at your organization. And it's not going to fully replace in person, having that person come on site and meet and have dinner with a team that they're going to be working with. But it was a way to get faster to that decision point of, could this person be a right fit? And the reason they felt that a holographic interaction was a higher value experience than purely a video interaction was because of that feeling of co-presence, that feeling as if that person was there in the room with you. They felt that they could get to building rapport quicker, connection quicker, which ultimately leads to building trust quicker. And when it comes to human interaction, that ability to establish rapport and get to trust is what it is all about. We focus as humans on that human interaction, that human connection. It is incredibly important to us to make sure that the individuals we are working with have our back, that we trust them, we understand their motivations, what's going on. So that ability to go beyond just collaboration, to get to connection, is what is incredibly important to us. So what does this mean for going forward? I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I'm doing a talk tomorrow with one of my colleagues and the AI and virtual beings track that's called Hello, Hologram, and we'll be talking about where we think the future of the space is going. So I'm not going to tell you today. Come tomorrow. Please come see. I will say, though, that everything that we have today is really just scratching the surface. I really enjoy this conference. I've been here for several years, and I always like coming and seeing on the expo floor who's really pushing the envelope on what. There are so many experiences today where we're just starting to see how this could be applicable. I love the fact that we're building something that our customers are finding value in today, but there's so much more in this space. We haven't fully solved teleportation just yet, but I'm hoping we get there. I do want to leave with one thought here, and this is something I cannot stress enough. Being in the technology space, being in the innovation space, I think it's so easy to get caught up in the amazing experiences that we can create through technology, and we focus on the technology part and not the experience part. It is always so important to remember that we're not building technology for technology's sake. We're building something that fosters and builds collaboration and connection. And if your tech makes it better for people to connect and interact, then it will be successful. If it does not foster connection and build an experience, it will not be. It is that simple. I do have a little bit of time for questions at the end. Thank you so much for this. If you're interested in learning more about the solution we built, you can go to webex.com/hologram. Interested in learning more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn or our Webex blog. Thank you, thank you. Questions?
Blake Runke, Neopolis Graduate School. Quick question, good presentation. For your customers, what do you tell them as far as latency? Like how much distance would you recommend or latency to have a good experience with them?
Don't compromise on latency. It needs to be an amazing experience. Well, I'm happy to talk about more of this offline, but I mean, making sure that you have render servers in the right location with the individuals and all that will impact it. But I think the common misconception is if we have this amazing 3D experience, we're going to have to compromise on latency, and that's really not true. The latency that we see in these experiences is similar to what you see in a video call. Anything else? I'll be around for a few minutes if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth.